and welcome everybody.
Hi there.
Hey
Hello.
Amanda and Pilot, how's it going?
Good.
I'm good. It's Friday.
Yeah, Friday and short work week next week, right?
That's true.
Heck
I
yeah.
was like double checking. I'm not the only one who thinks that that's happening.
It's not going to show up Monday.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to Meredith if we're all wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Godspeed.
It's actually we've been getting a lot of snow here in Wisconsin, and today is another school's canceled today. So Nat and Ab are home, my wife and daughter, and yeah, it's going to be a nice super long weekend for my daughter. So
That's nice.
so we're here to chat about Obsidian. We've talked about it before. I'm trying to think here. I'm actually going to pull up our PeerTube video. But I know it was almost a year ago, I want to say.
I think it was. I feel like it was almost exactly a year ago, but I think that might just be the part of me that wants everything to be like really, like nice.
Yeah, it was according to PeerTube a year ago, but it does some heavy rounding, kind of like YouTube does, where it's like anything within 3 months is a year.
Yeah, and you can't mouse over it to get the exact date, can you?
Oh, you can click on it.
But
January 12th. Oh my God, it's exactly a year
Oh my
ago.
God! Yes!
That's
No
amazing.
way.
Huh. I scarcely believe that, to be honest. That is wild.
No way.
Oh my God.
This is going to be hilarious to anyone who watches this, because you're like, wow, they're really making a lot of this thing that they totally planned, and we did not plan it that way.
We didn't
swear to everything.
No one's going to believe that we didn't plan it.
Why should they? So yeah, well, this stream, we were coming right off of open publishing ecosystems as a flex course, and we had done like a ghost newsletter. And I want to say, I mean, because I'll bring up Obsidian to anyone who will listen or not listen, basically. So it kept coming up, and at a certain point, I think we were just like, yeah, we should do a stream on this. And so we talked a little bit about what the tool is, and then we kind of looked at this I would hesitate to call it a plugin because it's not really, but this workflow called Obsidian Share that I had found that lets you basically use some like JavaScript and PHP code that someone wrote in a GitHub repository, and you would put it on your shared hosting account. You put it in cPanel, and you would basically, with the help of a plugin that lets you run JavaScript inside of Obsidian called Templater, it would run some JavaScript that would publish a note to your cPanel account, so that it could be public, which was super cool. It was for one note at a time, and it was interesting. It doesn't seem to be very well maintained. Like, it has an error every single time I run it, even though it works just fine. But I wanted to show off what it was because I thought it was kind of interesting. But it's been a while, and things change over time, right? So we thought it would be a good time to kind of revisit, how are we using Obsidian, especially coming off of open publishing ecosystems. Obsidian's all about writing notes in plain text that are just in a folder that you own and control. And plain text was a main character of open publishing ecosystems, I would say. Very much something that came up over and over and over again. Yeah, Markdown for sure. And that's what Obsidian does. But, even just the idea of plain text as a format and what that offers you in general was a big point of that. So it felt natural, I think, to kind of revisit, I guess, exactly a year later. So
I think for sure. I mean, for me, man, I really wish I could be like, oh, a year later, I'm going strong. I figured out Obsidian. I've figured out like my note taking, got it like on lock. I do not. Wow. It's gotten worse throughout this year. I mean, 2023 was a big year for me in terms of just like life, but I really dropped the ball on it. So 2024 productivity, hacking my brain and all that is the goal. So we're starting that off with this. Like I want this conversation to change my workflows. So
you're not putting any pressure on me and Taylor
I'm
at
putting
all.
all of the pressure on you. Like you guys need to deliver.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
and I told you I didn't get to prep for this. I didn't have enough time.
I get some prep in this morning, and we have some things to chat about. But I kind of want to talk even just like how we're using it right now. So it sounds like Amanda's a little bit lost at sea right now and where it fits, right?
Let me tell you how I'm using it. So
Okay.
every now and then I will pop open a little note that just has the date on it and write down some important stuff that is happening throughout the day. And it lives in a folder. Or the notes live in a folder that have a bunch of other stuff in the folder, which is fine. And like that's what's cool about Obsidian is that like it's just notes in a folder. And so I've kind of I have it marked as like a reclaim thing. So I've got folders within that folder that have various like specifically like screenshots that I save for things, for documentation, and I can easily link to them if I want to within my Obsidian notes, but it just all feels very jumbled. And I also, you know, when I first started using Obsidian, I was really doing the whole like templating my daily note, like that had a template that was like encouraging me to go through and check things. But I think that along with like Asana and now kind of incorporating Asana into my workflow, which we've been doing a lot as a team, has really interrupted the way that I've utilized Obsidian. So
Sure.
Yeah, that's just to say kind of how I'm using it. It's really sloppy, I guess, would be the way that I'd characterize it.
Well, and I think, I think one of the cool things here is I suspect the way, just having talked to Pilot about Obsidian before, well, I haven't talked to both of you about it before. I suspect that Pilot and I use it extremely differently. And I mean that in a good way, in terms of you're going to probably find yourself thinking like, okay, maybe I could pull from this or that, or neither, I guess. And I think maybe that'll be helpful because I'm not sure if it's situated differently, like in our note taking, but I am not a structured note taker, and that's what I love about Obsidian is I throw all structure to the wind and it just deals with it, and I'm okay with that. And so for me, Obsidian is a place to put text if I have a 10 milliseconds where I'm like, I have text and I want it to go somewhere and I don't know where it should go, it goes in Obsidian. That's kind of at a base level what Obsidian is for me. And I use it for more than that, but that itself is super helpful for me. I use the daily notes. I forget, is that a plugin? We've talked about this before. I think it's just built in.
It's a built-in plugin, so we might not have talked about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, you're right. There are core plugins and community plugins, and I'm looking in mine right now. And Daily Notes is a core plugin. So I turned on Daily Notes, and I have mine set to every single time I open Obsidian, and I use Obsidian Sync, so it's also on my phone too. But anytime I open Obsidian, it opens to a today's daily note every single time, which means that's my kind of catch-all for little things. And what I like about Obsidian is it's really easy to move from that disorganized, here's a day and here's a bunch of text, and move that into something that is more structured.
That is what I would like to hear more about.
Okay.
Because I could definitely get behind, continuing the chaos of the way that I've been using Obsidian, but then like leveraging it, because right now it's like, I don't use it as much as I could because I'm like, I'm just going to keep adding to this mess. So yeah, it's interesting to me.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely talk about that. I can kind of show some examples and stuff, but before we get into like screen sharing and all that kind of stuff, like Pilot, how does Obsidian fit into your life?
Yeah. Okay. So I use Obsidian I have the daily notes thing set up. Automatic. So when I open Obsidian, it'll create a fresh note. And I have that templated so that the daily note always has a to-do section, sales, edtech, support, infrastructure, notes to self section. I don't use most of that. I set that up at a very ambitious time in my life. Or I don't use most of it day to day. So if there's a particular thing that has to like for example, we have the weekly infrastructure team meeting on Tuesdays. So if there's something that I want to remember to bring up in the meeting, I have, maybe that's not a core plugin. I have a calendar plugin that exists where you can click the day and it'll take you to that day's note.
Yes, that's a community plugin. I use it too. It is vital to my use of it. Yeah.
It's really good. But so if there's going to be an infrastructure meeting on the 16th. If there's something that I want to bring up that I don't remember or that I don't want to forget, I'll go and I'll click the 16th and it'll make a note for me ahead of time for that day with the template. And then I'll go put under the infrastructure section. Infrastructure meeting, remember to ask about single sign-on. Don't forget. And that way, on Tuesday when I open it up, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's there. That's great. So that's a fun way of future-proofing it. If things get really if a section gets really out of hand, it's going to need its own document or something like that. I'll extract it into a new note. And then I'll link that on the day when I first started working on it. So it's sort of a weird system of I have the daily notes and then I have what I call supplemental, which is like anything that got large enough that it just needed its own space.
That's so funny because remember how I was like, yeah, I suspect we use it very differently. That's exactly how I use it. So I'm very wrong on that.
Well,
and that's kind of cool.
that's my workflow. Using
Sure.
Obsidian. I also use Obsidian. I was telling Amanda and Taylor about this before we got on stream. In not work contexts, I'm part of a tabletop group that our current campaign is like we're detectives. It's a detective agency. We have mysteries. So I use Obsidian in a much more structured and weird way for that, where every session that we meet gets a session note, and the session note gets a template inserted into it. And when we meet a character, you use Obsidian has this feature where you can like put something in double square brackets and then write it out, and then later you can click on it and it'll make a new note. And so you do that for every character that we go and every place that we go.
And that's called wiki links, basically.
Yes.
There's other pieces of software that have that functionality. It's not technically part of Markdown, but many Markdown things do implement it, including Obsidian. And you're right, that ability to put double brackets around a word or a phrase and be like, this could be a note or should be a note.
I'll come back to that.
Super cool.
It's really, really helpful. So I do that. And then there's like, you can alias things, which is super helpful in a mystery because it's like, oh, this guy goes by this, that they were the same guy the whole time. Great. I'll just add an alias. It's the same guy wherever. And then I make use of the canvas, which I never do for work because there's no point. But the canvas feature in Obsidian, I love. Personal life. Keyword personal life. Amanda put in the chat, why the pilot is this organized in their personal life. I love the canvas feature as a way of like, I have a board for the case that we're working on, and here's the client who hired us, and it's a missing persons case, and here's the person we have to find, and here are the 3 objectives that the client gave us, and here's one for each clue. And then the canvas has, you like little arrows that point between things, so you can make like a weird stringboard mind map thing. And it's really, really great for like sitting down afterwards and going, wow, I don't know what just happened. I'm just gonna rearrange this until I understand what happened. But I would never, ever use that for work. So in terms of...
I think I need some kind of case study of overlap between like certain types of DMs and project managers.
I'm not a DM. I'm the player.
Oh, okay, that's even better.
Well, I also send this. I send this to the entire chat after I'm done, and there's a specific section for like, here's what I think we should do next time. And my DM apparently likes that. He appreciates that.
Cool.
Pilot is such DM energy.
The mystery campaign is. I don't DM that one. I theoretically, periodically DM other stuff.
I feel like if you go back to our Obsidian stream from this day last year, I feel like I remember you bringing up
wanting to use Canvas.
You said you wanted to use Canvas because at that time Canvas was not that.
I think it was like
it had only been out a couple months or maybe less. Yeah.
And you did it, Pilot. I'm just so impressed and jealous that like they said something in January. I'm gonna do this.
I started doing it in November.
This is like a group workout stream for note taking.
Oh boy. Well, this is also the thing of like, I was like, oh, I didn't get to prep. Theoretically, what I wanted to do prior to
prepping
this
for a year
what I wanted to do prior to this was to take like an hour or two over the past week and make a fake version of this. That's like a lot of dummy data. And I was like, that's, a pipe dream, but I might get to do it. I did not do it. I was like, I'm going to show off. No, can't do it.
So, yeah. So the use case and what the two ways you're using it and outlining it are, I think, a perfect example of why this tool is so powerful, right? Because it is just plain text, but with a couple features it implements purely in plain text. You can create as little or as much structure as you want, really, right? And then there's a super robust plugin ecosystem to automate some of that too. So you've mentioned that you use templates. I am not a template person. I don't use templates anywhere in Obsidian, although if I was using Obsidian for like tabletop RPG stuff, I probably would make like some kind of crude NPC or character sheet template. But for my note taking, which I am not a separator of work and personal for note-taking purposes. I have trouble with that distinction. And so long ago, I've thrown it out. I was like, well, if I can't decide sometimes, I should just not worry about it. And for me, that works. That's not everybody. I understand that. But there's so many things where like, this is a particular problem if you're a weirdo like me and some of your hobbies become work things later, right? Like, so I have like a whole cheat sheet on how to use a FFmpeg and like some weird command line tools. And it's like, well, now I use that in work too. So
I think you have a blog post about that somewhere.
I have more than one blog post about FFmpeg. It is profoundly uninteresting to anyone but me. So, but it's helpful stuff. And some of that stuff even was a blog post that I simply blogged because I had a cheat sheet in Obsidian I was like, this is 2/3 of a blog post. I should just put it on my blog. So anyway, I tend to mix all that stuff together, but I use tags in Obsidian to make stuff, sortable if I need to. But the cool thing about this is because it's just plain text files, and to be clear, one of the things that I think gets taken for granted about Obsidian is that not only is it just plain text files, but they're, literally a folder on your computer. And if you move things around in that folder, Obsidian will keep track of it and update things. There's some exceptions to that. Like if I'm not 100% sure, but I think if I was to rename a note outside of Obsidian, it may not go update the links to that note if it's linked to elsewhere.
I'm pretty sure all your links will break.
Yeah. But for things like if you keep them named the same and you move them around, or if you were to add images and things like just by going into Finder and throwing them in there, Obsidian will pick that up and actually start indexing them as soon as you do that, which is actually really powerful if you need to do some mass, reorganizing. There are ways to do that both within Obsidian and without, which is super cool. For instance, if you had Obsidian has a concept of a vault, and a vault is literally just a folder, but that is all of the notes go in a vault. Yeah. So you can actually run Obsidian more than once. You can have 2 vaults, 3 vaults open if you want. Or if you want to, you could put those 2 vaults in one folder and then open them up as the one big vault that contains both of them.
I've never done that.
Yeah. So that's the kind of cool thing. And I know that sounds like a why would you do that? But my point is that flexibility lets you kind of change your mind later in ways that is really hard to do with like tools like Evernote or Notion is a big one. Like I used Notion for a long time and I really like it. But like if you need to do anything in bulk in Notion, you need to learn how to program against their API. Like there's no, or you've signed yourself up for thousands of clicks in an hour of your time. It stinks. So
one thing that I found that was a benefit, because I did play around with like, okay, vault, other vault, big vault, vault within vault type thing. One thing that I found out that is maybe good, maybe bad, depending on what you want out of Obsidian, and having the option to choose is nice, is I think we're going to talk about themes and plugins. Themes and plugins are set at the vault level. So if I have vault, if I have big vault, and then I have little vault 1 and little vault 2, themes and plugins for big vault do not trickle down when you open little vault 1 or little vault 2. And vice versa, little vault 1 and little vault 2 will not bounce back up. What that means, though, is that like you can set a theme for, okay, little vault 1 is just blogging. That's just it. That's all that goes in there. And I want my blogging space to look like this because when I open it, this color gets me in a writing mood. This is not really how my brain works, but the point of like, you can customize if customizing your workspace to get you into a really specific headspace and to say, these are tools I'm only going to want when I'm blogging works. You can set all of that up in your little blogging vault, customize everything else. And then if you need to work macro, say, well, I don't need that type of space. I don't need to fully repaint my desk for that.
Yeah.
And
there's even like all of those settings, the plugins, themes, every single setting is literally just stored in a hidden folder in the vault called .obsidian, which is super cool too. So if you grab that vault and go, if you're using a syncing service like Dropbox, or you're using their sync feature, or just you have it on your computer and you move it to a new one, all of those settings are included in there automatically, which is super cool. And it does a really smart job of making adjustments. Like I regularly use Obsidian on my work machine, my phone, and my personal computer, which is a Windows computer. And it does things like smartly translate keyboard shortcuts, like, because they're different across Mac and Windows, you know? So like, because I am weirdly obsessive about keyboard shortcuts. So I have some of them changed in my Obsidian, but those get kind of synced in a way that's really smart. So the other kind of cool thing about this all just being a folder is you can use other tools to edit the files inside them too. So I have on certain occasions used Visual Studio Code, which is a text editor, to edit my Obsidian notes if there was a specific reason, like maybe a specific feature that it had. So one time I happened to have like a bunch of table data, you know, like in a markdown table, which is like, markdown tables are kind of weird to work with. And I needed to make some bulk changes. Like I wanted to change the name of something like 5 different times. And it was easier for me to use some of the tools in Visual Studio Code to do that. I could just open the file and that was it. Once I hit save, it was changed over there instantly. So I think it'd probably be good to kind of shift focus a little bit to screen sharing here so we can keep talking about this stuff, but kind of show what we're saying.
So visual interest.
Yeah. Add some visual interest to this plain text, you know? So let me share that my Obsidian vault here, or my Obsidian screen here. So this is what mine looks like. And I am using, maybe I can zoom in here a little bit too make this a little bit easier for folks to see. This is what my Obsidian, basically, if I close this other note here, because there's a tab bar at the top, this is what Obsidian looks like as soon as I open it. So it will automatically open my daily note. And the cool thing is it will create one if there isn't one. And if there is one, it just opens it. So it leaves off, I can kind of effectively pick up exactly where I left off. Today, I don't have much on here. For full transparency, I don't have any meetings today except for this stream. And then I'm going to be on support quite a bit. So today is not a day where I'm using my daily note quite a bit, although who knows? It's only 9:30 in my time zone. So there might be stuff here later. But you can say I just manually added a heading for the EdTech stream today. And I actually have a note specifically for the EdTech stream today. And it started out as some notes under this heading. So originally I wrote like themes, maybe we talk about, and plugins and public notes and stuff. How do we use Obsidian? This is kind of how it started out. And then eventually I decided it should be its own little discrete note that I could click on. So that's what this looks like now. And we'll look more at this note later. But if I go back here, the cool thing is to take from the notes I started here and split them out into their own note is really fast in Obsidian. So you can literally just right click, you can select some text, right click and go extract current selection. And it'll be like, cool, where do you want to put that?
Yeah, we can't see your right click menu because you've shared the window and not the screen.
Got it. Let me share my whole screen because there's going to be plenty of that kind of thing, I think, if I don't.
Yeah, but I love this feature of Obsidian. This is what I meant when I was saying earlier, like if I write down too much and Taylor and I we have the same workflow. Never mind. This is yeah.
So let me, oops, wrong thing.
Yeah, perfect.
That is as large as Obsidian will let me make the text. So hopefully that's readable.
That's about the maybe like slightly smaller than when you were just sharing your window. So it's fine.
Okay. So I can actually just select some text here, and obviously this is not that much. I also could copy paste it, right? But I can just right click on that and hit extract current selection and then go test note. And I can just give it a title. And hit enter and it'll create a new note. You also notice here that it actually was searching through all of my notes. So you can also have it add to the end of an existing note too.
What? Oh, cool.
That's crazy.
Oh, cool.
That's not something I personally use that much, but it is kind of neat. With extracted text. All right. So I hit enter and bam, it instantly took that text out, made a new note with it, and then left in its place a link to the note. So this I use like literally all the time. This is so handy, and then I can click on it, and now I'm at the new note. And one of the cool things about Obsidian is we've mentioned this a little bit, but it is aware of the titles of notes and how they're linked. So I can go in here and say, name this again, my cool demo note.
Stop it.
And
if
I go back, it's going to automatically have fixed the link for me. So.
Oh, you have it set to, I have it set to like confirm with me every single time.
Nah, just fully do it for me. Again, my Obsidian workflow is all about speed. I don't, if something requires like precious formatting, I'm probably doing it in a different tool at a certain point. I try to keep my Obsidian to like get out of my way as much as possible. That's just my use case though, because I really, like I said, I really have a frequent need to like have a place to dump some text or some idea or something like that. And Obsidian is the best tool I've ever found for that, for me personally. So the calendar view over here, you, as Pilot mentioned, you can actually click on individual days and it will go to the notes. These are the notes. I have mine set up to the one true date scheme, which is year, month, date. But you can configure that if you have some worse way that you want to date things. But
Obsidian does it for you like this by default, by the way. Because
yeah.
Obsidian's really good at stuff.
Because Obsidian was programmed by programmers, I suspect. But anyway, I also have my daily notes automatically get created in a folder. This folder is a disaster mess. I never go in here, basically. This is just where the notes go for daily notes. I typically will either search for a particular day if I know what day I'm looking for, or I will go to the calendar. But honestly, most often I don't know what day I'm looking for, and I'm using the built-in search to find a text from an earlier note. So like, if I can just go here and hit search and go like, all right, let's look for WordPress. That'll be in here quite a bit. Oh, hey, here's a note from January 5th. This was something for my last week's stream. And I made a note in here, should I move my blog over to WordPress? So it's January 5th. This was last week. Yeah. So typically I'm navigating notes in Obsidian by search, by the calendar, and then like things I'm working on right now, I tend to keep as loose notes at the top of my vault. So you can see here, there's a couple things. So this is the note we just made, my cool demo note. I have some Mastodon post integration thing that I want to do with my blog. I have some notes on a new EdTech countdown that I want to make someday. This is a good example, PHP info. This is what I would call like a cheat sheet type note, and I will tag it as such. But cheat sheets for me are individual notes that are like heavy on code or programming that I can go back and pull and reuse. So here I just have a note where this is the PHP info tag. So if you put this in an index.php file, you get the little like readout of all of the features that your web server has for PHP. And I need this often enough that I got sick of Googling it. So I put it in here. And in this case, I haven't sorted the note yet. So this is my other use case of notes in Obsidian is individual topic-based notes, but they're typically pretty small for me. So these are things where I've basically gone through my daily note and said, oh, this is nice and I could use this a lot and I want it to be easy to find. So let me extract it, pull it out into its own note, right? And then the cool thing is it's really easy to hop around notes in Obsidian. So you can click this little quick switcher button, or you can use a keyboard shortcut. I don't remember what is the default keyboard shortcut for it. I use Command P, but this will just do a quick search of all of my notes. So I can go.
It's Command O for.
That's the default? Okay.
Yeah, for open.
That makes sense. So I have my Command O set to open an external text editor. But I don't, it's stupid. I don't really do that often. But anyway, I think I set this up because Visual Studio Code uses Command P for this similar functionality.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be similar. But this lets me jump between notes really quickly. So I can start typing and you can see that it's like instant. The search is literally as fast as you can type, which is so great. And I can quickly jump between notes that way. So I am frequently going into my Obsidian to dig up stuff like maybe I need to do something with the WP CLI, which is that comes up pretty often, to be honest with you, in my day-to-day. And I've just got a cheat sheet here of like a ton of specific commands that I've found useful before. Some of these are somewhat basic. Some of them are kind of complicated, like here's how I can export a CSV of sites from a WordPress multi-site, things like that. So yeah. I tend to use Obsidian both for like dumping text somewhere and then these types of cheat sheets. That's the majority of what's in my Obsidian. One of the other things I really like about Obsidian is that it handles images remarkably well for a Markdown editor. Most plain text
start making use of that, I feel like.
Yeah, most plain text tools are like, yeah, you can embed an image, just like put it someplace public on the web, and then type out your alt text goes here, and then you put the whole link to the image over here. Maybe you put it on like Imager, or maybe it's on your own blog site. That sucks. Like, I mean, it's fine, but again, for my use case of I need to capture something quickly, that's not good enough. So what I really like is you can just drag images or other files for that matter right into Obsidian, and it will embed it in the note automatically, and then it will store it in your vault someplace. So it can actually, you can configure where it goes. I believe that's in files. I don't remember where this goes. There's a million settings. The cool
daily note file,
daily notes, for attachments.
For attachments?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
There's a way, but you can tell it oh yeah, default location for new attachments. So mine go in a folder called files, and it's just unorganized chaos in there, and that's how I like my files folder.
Great.
But you can also have it go into the same folder as your current file, or in a subfolder under it, like, you know, media. So you can specify this stuff. I prefer mine to just be in one place that I never go in, basically. But you have that flexibility to configure that. And again, the cool thing, the hard thing about Obsidian is there is so much flexibility. It can be daunting to get started with. But, you know, starting with the defaults is what I did. And then over time, I was like, you know, I wish it could work this way. And like 99% of the time I found, oh, it totally can.
Yeah.
And then I changed that setting like probably 3 years ago, and then never thought about it since, because the way the settings work in Obsidian, they're all tied to your vault. So I'm never like resetting this stuff up the way I use Obsidian. So that's super cool. And I really, really appreciate that flexibility. So really quick, I'll wrap up here. The other places. So like I said, these top level, these are notes that that I'm still like, quote unquote, working on. But after that, they go in the archive folder. So I will literally just move them to archive. So if I go to PHP info here, I can just, you know, I can just drag it in there. Or I can use a keyboard shortcut. That's what I typically do. That's, for me, it's Command Shift M, and then I will type archive, and now it's in archive. So it's still findable. Archive is just a folder for me. And again, my archive, gosh, like like 90% of my notes are just in there. But I, again, really like that workflow of like, I'm using search or the titles of notes to find things. So for me, having a sort of unorganized archive folder is great, because I don't like creating. What I've found in the past is when I try to like have a structured folder, when I've got subfolders and things, I spend way too much time organizing and reorganizing, and not enough time just getting in and out and finding what I want. So for me, the search is more than good enough to find the stuff I want. And then I tag things. So tags in Obsidian, I think there's more than one way you can use. Like, you can use what's called front matter. So you can have like a section where you define tags, or you can do what I do, which is you just use the pound key and start typing. And when you're done, that's a tag.
Yeah.
So, and you can put it anywhere in the document.
Yeah.
A lot of times mine are at the top, but it doesn't actually matter where they go.
Oh, Taylor, I'm going to show you a trick.
Yeah.
You're not going to use this trick because it's not going to suit your workflow, but I'm going to show it to you. Let's see. Well, now I get to go think through the fact that this is something that I don't use at work. This is something that I use in Mystery. Let's see. Oh God, what have I done? I promised you something and I'm immediately going to fail to deliver. What have I done? Oh wait, no, I remember how. Okay, Taylor. So up at the top of this note, like above PHP cheat sheet, above your tags, just make a new line. Type 3 dashes in a row.
Yeah. So this is front matter. Yep. And I have used this before.
Wait,
but
what do you have going on? That's not what happens in mine. That's how you add properties.
Yeah, that's called front matter. So basically, you can go in here and have like, I don't know, label, and you can do that, and they become properties. So.
Oh, mine just does that automatically. Never mind. I was wondering why yours was formatting it in plain text. If I type,
so you can switch.
Okay.
You can switch between the two. So the little button at the bottom, it says live preview. There's 3 modes. There's reading mode, which doesn't let you edit the file. Live preview, which pretty much looks like reading mode, but you can't edit. And then source mode. And source mode is, honestly, I tend to edit a lot like that, because I don't like not being able to see what I'm editing. So I don't know. I switch back and forth a lot.
Obsidian does do a weird thing where if you type out the thing that you want, and it then will format it for you and then
instantly, and it
instantly,
sometimes can be
and
hard to see.
Yeah, and then you can't go back to see what it is until you like go put your
Click
cursor
back onto
inside
it.
it. Yeah. No,
Yeah, so I
okay,
don't
that
like
makes
that very much, so I switch back and forth. So again, I mapped that to a keyboard shortcut. So Command Shift E switches between source mode and preview mode for me. So
Okay.
I'm constantly, in fact, I if I was being better about this demo, I would have mentioned that before I was doing it, but it's like ingrained in my brain. Like it's just something it's on my muscle memory at this point, is switching back and forth. But yeah, you can put whatever you want in here.
Yeah, that's what I use that for. Actually, is for the aliases, which again is not something that you're likely to need necessarily. But if you switch into live preview, Taylor, you can, one of the properties that you can set is aliases for a yeah. And then you can say like, this is also called PHP cheat sheet. And then if you ever write a link to PHP cheat sheet somewhere
Either
else,
is valid.
either is valid. It'll
That's
prompt you and
cool.
say, yeah, it'll say, are you actually, yes. So that is how the aliases property works. I think it's cool as hell, and I love it.
Yeah, I did not know aliases were even a thing. So what I tend to do is, and I have some notes like this that just have like, it's like SEO keyword spam in my title. It'll be like PHP info code cheat sheet note.
Nope.
Not quite that bad, but like sometimes I have pretty nasty titles to make them really easy to find in the title, the this thing, the quick switcher.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. I'll have to keep that in mind. I'll keep that alias on there because I may use that some more. But I'm going to delete this note. Oh, one other thing I love about Obsidian is the command palette. So again, you can click on this little icon over here or use a keyboard shortcut. Mine is set to Command Shift P. I don't remember what the default is, but you can find in the if you are a keyboard shortcut person, you can go into the preferences for Obsidian, and all the hotkeys are really easy to edit. So I would encourage you to look at that, and you can search by key or you can search by function if you know what you're looking for. So anyway, the command palette. And then this is just like a list of every single thing that you can do as a command in Obsidian, and it's filterable. So I can go in here and say like, I don't need this note anymore. I want to delete it. Delete current file. And then I can just hit enter. So I love that Obsidian, for me, I can stay at the keyboard and do things really quickly a lot of the time.
It's Control P in raw Obsidian, by the way.
Okay. Yeah,
so that's the thing that you use.
I use for quick switcher. Yeah. So I switched all mine around a little bit. But yeah, so that's, some hyper specific details and some overview of kind of like how I use Obsidian. And one thing I'll mention is all of these like panels we're looking at are reorganizable. So I have my calendar up here always visible, but you can actually move these around. So I could say like, maybe I want my bookmarked notes to always be visible in like a third section. So I can just drag it down here and add that. So I have mine in 2 sections like this. By default, everything's going to be in one little sidebar. So your stuff will look something like this. And the calendar plugin actually by default goes on the right. But you can just pick up any of these little widgets and just move them around, which I
really good.
super like. And the only thing I don't like about it is, and I don't know how they would fix this, is some of this doesn't translate super well to the phone interface because you don't have all this screen real estate. So on the phone, all of these widgets live in one pre-described place and you can't move them. And I don't realistically know what you do. So yeah, actually this, I think probably a perfect time. Autumn mentions how to find and install plugins in our chat here. So I think it's time to talk about that. So you go to your settings in Obsidian, and there's a ton in here, but there's two types of plugins. There's core.
The interface buttons instead of the keyboard.
Oh yeah, good point. Settings down here. Core plugins so these are all the built-in plugins for Obsidian. These are sort of built-in features. I use many of them, but not all. So Apparently there's an audio recorder. That's cool.
Yeah.
I probably
I think
wouldn't
that
use
one's off by
but
default. Some of them are
they're
also
all off by default.
They are.
I believe. Nope, no. Definitely
No.
some of the files
Canvas is
probably
definitely on by default.
Yeah, you're right. So but there's a lot in here. So there's like that command palette thing I mentioned. That's a plugin. Canvas is in here. I
Yeah.
guess the file viewer is a
Well, that's
plugin.
the neat thing about Obsidian is like I think part of the reason that it just looking at this, I'm thinking about now we've been talking like, oh, it's so modular, you can make it whatever you want. It's because even the core features are plugins.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
can be
all
replaced. You know,
Yeah.
developers could make their own file viewer if they wanted, and I'm sure some people have. So
Yeah.
there is that ability for me to extract text, I believe, is the note composer, and I think that one's on by default too. So there's a
Yep.
lot of these things here, and the cool thing is they roll out new features typically as plugins too. So there's this properties view lets you look at some of those front matter metadata that we were showing, that Pilot was talking about. You can actually show that in different ways in the file sidebar. But if you don't like that, you can just turn it off and it just doesn't exist for you. So that's super cool. And there's a lot in here. So you can even do, you know, I'm using many of them, but not all of them. Templates, are you using the built-in template feature, Pilot, for your templates?
I don't believe yes.
Yeah. So basically the way this works is you turn it on and then you can have a folder full of templates.
Mhm.
And that's where your templates live. And then you can automatically create new notes from those templates, which is super cool.
Yeah.
There's also, you know, even like a workspace thing, which is interesting. So you can like have it automatically open up and save several notes at a time. And oh, I want to open up these 3 notes because I use them for this weekly meeting or something like that. There's a lot in here. But then there's a lot more in community plugins. So I'm using like 15 of them right now.
I have fewer community plugins
You
installed.
guys should drop the community plugins that you're using, like after the stream or something, in the.
I have to confess that I have like 3 or 4 community plugins that I installed as like, wow, I want to see if any of these will do the thing. They're all for different task management ones. And I installed all of them, turned all of them on, and I've never figured out which one does which thing. So I can't.
Well, drop the ones that you use.
Calendar community plugin.
Yeah, I won't go through all of mine, but I will highlight a couple of them here, and absolutely I'll write out links to, or I'll write some of them out. So first one, yes, calendar. That pulls up the calendar, and there's some features in here, like you can have it. Do you want it to confirm before creating a new note? If you say like I click on Tuesday the 9th, which doesn't have a note right now, you can say automatically create one if one doesn't exist, or confirm. I guess I have mine set to confirm, but yeah, there's a handful that are vital for me. The janitor, I love this one. This one you can configure it to do lots of things, but I have it set to automatically delete notes that have no content. So basically I can go in here and click on this trash can, and it will find any daily notes that I never wrote in and just get rid of them. So I really like that.
Oh, that would be rough if you use a template to automatically fill your daily note.
Yeah, it wouldn't work then.
Yeah.
But there are other ways you can have it do things. You can have it also look for like image attachments that aren't actually attached to any notes. So say you put a screenshot in a note and then you later deleted the note. Well, that image is still in your vault somewhere. This can automatically go clean it up if you want. So you can even have it run automatically, like every time you open Obsidian. I don't. I just click on the trash can once a month when I think about it. I didn't use this for a long time, but I kind of like that there's something going through and cleaning up my old stuff that is no longer useful. Language tool is really cool. It's language tool is an open source, and you can even self-host it if you want to. It's kind of like Grammarly, but made by I'm much more comfortable with their privacy policy. I'll just say that. So that language tool is really cool, and there's a fantastic plugin built into Obsidian, or sorry, not built in, but as a community plugin that lets you get really good spell check and like grammar check and stuff like that. I have mine set to be off unless I ask for it. So I don't want my Obsidian spell checking me unless I tell it, okay, now let's spell check, because I don't want the distraction of it most of the time. But it's nice to have when I want it. Paste URL into selection. This thing is awesome. This thing brings the feature that WordPress and some other Slack has this too. If you have copied a URL and then you select some text and paste it, it will just make it into a link. And this does that. So that one I love. And then I have some table things because tables are rough in Markdown. I don't use them a lot, but there's
Obsidian,
3 plugins that help it a little bit.
Obsidian recently, at least they said they added periodically when you open Obsidian, they'll be like, hello, we've added a new release. I think their release notes for the most recent thing said they'd done something to bump tables, make them a little nicer.
Yeah, well, I'll have to check it out. But I use a couple table generator. I was reading the description. This just lets me quickly define a table. So you can like right click, say I want a new table, and then say 6 columns wide and 5 columns, 5 rows deep. So that's nice.
That sounds pretty good.
Markdown table editor is really interesting because it can actually you can put like hold on. It basically adds a bunch of different features, but you can edit like CSV data as a Markdown table and vice versa, which is sort of interesting. To be honest, I haven't used that one much, but I have it installed because I used it once and it was handy that one time. And then finally, advanced tables, I think is probably the biggest one. This just sort of does like autocomplete for tables. So this GIF is a perfect example, but as you write out a table, it'll automatically like resize the text so that it looks good for you.
Yeah, I would need that if I were making a table on Markdown. I hate making a table.
Markdown tables are not great.
They look so ugly by default.
Yeah, this makes them look pretty. And I, don't my other advice with Markdown tables is don't go overboard. Like if you're doing anything with numbers, you probably want a spreadsheet. Like there's no formulas. There are people out there who have made, by the way, like plugins that will do formulas and spreadsheet features inside of Obsidian Markdown tables. I think that is not a path to happiness, personally.
There are a lot of plugins for like data management and analysis in Obsidian.
DataView is one I have installed that I've used that is interesting. You can basically write like SQL queries against your notes, which I'm sure everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to do more SQL. So I used it for one thing and I thought it was interesting, and I'm not using it right now, so I probably should remove it. But yeah, there's a couple others here. I just installed recently Copilot, which is interesting. This lets you use the Chat GPT OpenAI API inside of Obsidian, which I was just morbidly curious about what that looked like. So basically it adds a button, and in my right sidebar, this is Chat GPT over here, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if I'll actually use this, but fascinating that someone made this. So it has that right built in, and then you can like copy really easily the responses from that into Obsidian. So that's kind of interesting and more just descriptive of the fact that Obsidian's plugins can do a lot of different things. Another one I really like is called Linktree, and this one basically is like an improved version of the backlinks viewer. So
I've never ever gotten use out of the backlinks viewer. I don't understand it.
Yeah, so here's a good example is it'll put like, oh, these are two things you've linked to, and I can click on it and it'll jump to that note, and then it'll also show this one is linked from this note. It's all in one nice view, basically. Backlinks will only show backlinks, not things
and
that
not
are
forward facing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So Linktree is kind of nice. So I'll put a thing there. My suggestion is like just install plugins one at a time, find ones you like. I've never really had one like break my Obsidian, but there definitely are plugins out there that just like don't work anymore. Like you'll install them and they don't quite work the way that they're supposed to. So they're pretty easy to install though. When you go into community plugins, you do have to turn on that feature. It's turned off by default. So you go to restricted mode and turn it you turn restricted mode off, and then you can go to search, or sorry,
I have
go
a
to
sample
browse.
vault made that I can share my screen if we want to walk through that process. We can like install the calendar or something.
Sure. I mean, I'll just grab one here, like advanced slides or Obsidian Git. So you can use the Git to back up your entire vault, which is kind of interesting. So that's one like that. Let me grab advanced slides here, because I've actually used this one before and it's pretty interesting. So I just hit install, and that's it. I just like WordPress, things can be installed but not enabled if you want to. And then I hit enable, and here we go. So now this is some you can make markdown based slides in Obsidian. That's actually built in, but this one has more features than the built-in version, basically. Yeah, plugins are easy to install, and they're super handy.
Yeah. Themes, I think.
Themes are about the same, honestly, in terms of how to install them.
Yes, in terms of how to install them, themes are about the same. Themes are a little weird in terms of there are some plugins that exist that's like style settings is a plugin that a lot of themes build on. So you'll open up a theme. I can't remember one off the top of my head, but you'll scroll down into the description and it'll say you need to install a plugin to give this theme full functionality.
Yeah, it's again kind of like WordPress.
Yeah.
Yeah. I typically I only have a couple themes, so I've used there's the default theme, and I think the default theme looks pretty good. I've used Minimal as a theme for a long time, and I highly recommend it. Right now, though, I'm using this Things theme, and I really like it. It's pretty minimal, but I don't know. It's like visually distinct in terms of the Minimal theme likes to remove any user interface that separates things in a way that I don't like. So I don't know. I switch between them, but there's tons of really good themes. If you are someone who misses like the Atom text editor, someone made the Atom's built-in theme right in here, which is kind of cool. There's a bunch of them, and there's some wacky ones too. Like there's like a Windows 95 one at one point. I don't know. I can't find it.
There's a big culture also of like there was, if you scroll up, there's like Anupuchin and Katapuchin, and like people will Anupuchin is that one, and that's, I think, someone basically took like cappuccino or catpuccin, or I don't know what it was called, but like people taking and extending other people's themes.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yeah, because by the nature of them, all Obsidian themes and plugins are, I shouldn't say they're all open source, because there's like licensing implications of saying that you're open source, right? Mm-hmm. But all Obsidian themes and plugins are just text files in your Obsidian vault. So you can easily look at the code that make them up.
They're also, you install them through GitHub. It's like Obsidian's UI that Taylor is on right now has listed at the top. There's the GitHub repository. Here is what Obsidian is pulling.
Yeah, I actually wonder if it pulls directly from GitHub. I think there may be like a directory, kind of like WordPress, but then, most people are also hosting their code, because there's definitely some that aren't on GitHub too.
Yes, that's true.
But this little store makes it really easy to, find them and try them out and stuff like that.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I gotta.
Oh my God, we're at
taking my break now. But this was awesome. You guys really brought your A game. I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling inspired. But I gotta bounce.
Start in 2024. All right. Happy Friday. See ya.
Bye. So we'll wrap things up pretty quick too. I will say, maybe not surprising, we ended up talking about gushing about Obsidian longer than I thought. But one of the things I want to share, I may just blog this too. Doesn't necessarily need to be part of a stream, is I'm kind of working on taking daily notes. I should mention that. So Autumn mentions in the chat daily notes being created automatically. The daily note plugin has a setting that lets it happen. So if you go to core plugins and then daily notes and then this little settings thing, you can have it, you can say, oh, open a daily note on startup, and that is what will create the file for you automatically. You can have a template note, which is what Pilot, which you have, right? You have a template note, so that it's automatic. It's always copying basically the contents of that note.
I can, and I'm okay to hang out for a couple more minutes, so I can actually show off my setup in that capacity if we want.
Sure. And then you can also from here choose the date format, and it has like some references that you can look at, and also where they should go. So mine go in a folder called daily, but you can put them in whatever folder you want, or you could even have them not go in a folder, just at the root of your vault, so that you can sort them later if you wanted to do it that way. So
I will say that if you do that, well, actually, you know what? We can demonstrate this. This would be great. Let me, I will share my screen. Gotta do. I don't share my screen in here all that often anymore. Change that. Change entire screen 2. Here we go. All right, let me add to stage. Here is Obsidian. I have
love the theme.
Yes, this is minimal. You can just dress minimal up.
Yeah. No, and like I said, minimal is a great theme. I just am trying this things one out right now. So
yeah. This is minimal. This is not what minimal looks like out of the box. Taylor's not wants his Obsidian experience to be very fast. Whenever I set up a new vault, I definitely spend at least half an hour just trying different themes. Different work needs different.
I use different themes for my different. I only have one other vault, which is my blog. I use Obsidian to edit my blog, but that gets a different theme too.
Yeah.
So
so you can. I'm just fully showing, telling on myself here. But this is the daily note for today, 24/1/12. We can look at the templates. Okay, so we're going to settings. Now we remember that I don't daily note settings. So my template file location is in supplemental templates. And my new file location, so every time a new daily note is made, it will be put into 2024-01 Jan.
Okay, so you update that every month, I guess, then?
I have set a recurring task in Asana for myself to make sure that happens. Yes. Yes. First of the month, change it over. Actually, it's more like the 30th of the month.
I wonder if you could use the date format expression in that field and have it automatically put them in the right folders for you. But anyway.
Well, so here's the thing. I just make a new folder every month.
Sure. What I mean is there's a language that the date format follows.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it also respects that inside the folder setting so that you could just define what it is and never touch that again. I don't know that that's even possible, to be clear. So
here's the thing is that because I have this set up in this way, so I have daily notes from like, we'll do December. So I have something from like December 29th. I don't know what I was doing on December 29th, but if I go back in the calendar to the 29th of December, there's no dots.
It breaks your calendar too. Yeah, because it'll make a second one. So.
It'll make a new one because it doesn't know where the old one lives because the old one does not live in the folder where it's supposed to live. And that is something that I have chosen to live with, and maybe I'll change my workflow at some point so that I don't have to live like this.
And my solution to that is I just don't. Like, I just have one folder where all the daily notes go, and I never look in there, really. I'm usually just using the calendar, but that's another way to handle it. I think both of our solutions are maybe less than ideal.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me because I don't really use the file browser, this note on the side very much, but
yeah. For templates, I said they were in supplemental templates. You designate a certain folder, and that's only where templates live. Or I guess you could put other stuff in there if you wanted to be able to insert it as a template. This is the template for daily notes. It will automatically link to this specific note, which is like, I can always go back to look at my long-term projects, ideas, and goals. Haven't looked at that in a while. I probably should either update it or get rid of it. Standard note. So this is something that I made, where the idea is I go, okay, I need a new note. Just make a new note. Note title. I want it to have some properties at the top. I will insert my standard note template. And this.
You could have it. Do you want that? Like, I think you can have it to always use a template on blank notes too. That would be useful.
That
May
might
mess
be.
with your daily notes though. I don't know. You'd have to play with that. But
Yeah, I'd have to do some testing. But for now, the other thing is that I did this before I knew about properties. So actually, what I can do now,
yeah, you
is
can find them as properties.
I can just say, please put the tags up there, and instead of that, we'll not have that line, and instead I will just have properties. I don't know why it's being so weird about having properties just live all the way over the to. I don't know, but
That's
is
a minimal theme thing. I think that can be defined in the minimal theme settings.
Okay, well, but yeah, so this is my setup. Sample, yeah, and I have one for. These are all the supplemental stuff that I haven't decided where it goes yet, or if I've been using it very often, it does not go in supplemental until I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And in terms of settings, so Canvas. I want to show off Canvas because I think Canvas is really cool, but I don't have anything to do with this canvas. So
that's the story of that feature for me. I've opened it many times and be like, this is not for the projects I have right now.
That's the thing, is Canvas is like really useful if you know what you want to use it for.
Yeah, and I should say too, Canvas. So Canvas lets you plot things out spatially. Pilot will show it in a second here. But Canvas is the only thing that breaks Markdown. So Canvas file. Is not. Yeah, Canvas is not Markdown. It is plain text, but it's a JSON file to store what it is. So it's still, I think, keeping to the idea of plain text and all that. But if you were to say open this file up in like a text editor, it would look more like code than anything. So
yeah. So the thing with Canvas is, we're going to zoom out a little. The idea of Canvas is, it literally is just, what it is. You can pull in straight up notes. You can add little sort of, it says cards. I think of them as like, you stick a little Post-it on there. The cards do support Markdown within them. So H2, H3. I also did a bunch of work to make sure that all of my headings were different colors. I spent a while on that. And then you can do things like you drag them around, they align to the grid. You can group them. So this is a cards group. You can turn your card a specific color. So this card is now purple, or this group is now purple. You can turn a note. You can turn a note a specific color. So this note is now orange. I can't look at the chat right now, so I don't know what's going on. You can click and drag your group around, which is nice. You can fully insert images. I don't have any media images because I've never figured out how that works. But
you can literally just drag them. So if you have a picture somewhere, you can just drag it right into your note.
Oh, neat. Okay.
You can also copy paste. So if you have a image in your clipboard and you paste it, it will create it as a file in your vault automatically, which is super cool. And it works for lots of things. So images are great. They work exactly as you would expect, but it also will embed PDFs. I have some weirdo spreadsheets in mine. Like I have like CSV files in my Obsidian vault, just for safekeeping, basically. So it will support any file, basically. Just some of them are previewable and some of them are not.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I've never played. I need to play around with that more than I do, probably. But one of the nice things, then, you can change this. You can make them bigger and smaller depending on how much you want to display. This, you can tap, you can double click, and it'll automatically resize it to only show the text that is in there, which is nice. You can put arrows. You can put arrows to groups. You can put your arrow to specific cards. You can change the color of the arrow. This is a very important arrow. You can change the directionality. So these will point back and forth to each other. Technically speaking, you can label it.
And I love that, like, to me, this is, I've always found mind mapping tools really interesting, but I've never latched to them because they always require my information to be mostly separate, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you've got your mind map and that's a neat visual, but like all of the information, quote unquote, is in a Google Doc or something.
Yeah.
And this is so cool because you can blend the two, right? So you can have a mind map that links to, like, you have like your zine brainstorming and planning note has a lot more content in it. It's just not all of it is visible from this view, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's really cool to me. And of course, you can get really tricky with this. The other thing that's really interesting, because Markdown supports HTML inline, you can do weird things like put iframes in your notes and just load web pages inside your. I have a few like that, and there are even some plugins that enhance that functionality. So like I don't think I have it right now, but at one point I had a plugin there. If it found a YouTube link, it would just turn it into an embedded YouTube video right inside the note. You could play it and everything, which is kind of neat. So it's kind of one of the cool things of, technically it's a side effect of it both being Markdown, but also the fact that Obsidian is kind of a sneaky web app that's in a desktop app. So the technology that makes Obsidian up is something called Electron, which is basically Chrome. So it can do a lot of web things inside of this desktop app, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think what else you can do in here. One of the things that I have found out that's interesting is that you can say, okay, we'll zoom in on this a little bit. You can put tags into this. So cool tag. And now there's a sort of a back and forth. One of the really fun things about Obsidian that we didn't show off at all is that there's the graph view. And the graph view will show all your notes, and you can sort by tag and things like that. I have
a prejudice against the graph view. I think it looks cool and is absolutely useless.
It's really cluttered. It gets cluttered so fast. Everyone on the internet seems to adore it, and it's
if you go type the word Obsidian and Reddit, and you will find a million images of this graph view. Do you want to share yours, or do you want me to share mine?
Oh, I found it.
Okay.
I found it.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you can. The other thing is that the graph view. Why don't I just make this as big as possible? The graph view is a node gets bigger based on how many things link to it. You will note that this link is part of the template for my daily note. It's real big.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is kind of just what the graph view looks like. It's mine looks kind of neat because it looks like there's just everything links back to one thing, which is true. But the graph view on like the other Obsidian Vault that I've talked about, that's like, this is a mystery, everything connects, linking back and forth. That's a mess.
And to be fair, like, I shouldn't say it's useless. There are things that people use this for legitimately. Like, there's a whole note-taking system called Zettelkasten, which has this idea of how you the sizes of notes essentially, and sort of how they should be linked together. So there are views here. Here's my graph view really quickly here, and I'll give it.
Oh, yours is beautiful. How did you do that?
What do you mean? Like, whoops! Oh my gosh.
Well, when you scroll out, it looks like a planet, but
yeah. Here, let me scroll back out again. So one of the things that people look for in this is they'll try to make sure that most notes are connected to one another in some way, because that's sort of like a way of mapping your notes as like a brain, kind of like making connections between them. And so like you'll notice a lot of my daily notes have nothing basically in them in terms of connections, but not all of them. I don't typically I have some direct between note connections using like wiki links, but honestly I use tags more than those. So most of mine are linked by some tag. So like if I go here, I'm sure one of these is gonna be cheat sheet. Yep.
Oh,
cheat sheet.
I forgot. I actually have to go. I have a meeting right now.
Okay.
I got
you
too caught up in
you should
Obsidian.
go, and I'll wrap the stream up. It's okay.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Uh,
But
yeah.
thanks for joining.
Yeah,
And
thank
we're
you.
over time anyway, so.
Yeah. And thank you for letting me show off the canvas view. I think the canvas view is really cool. What I was going to say is you can put tags in there, and then it's weird. They'll show up in a search, but they won't show up in the graph view. Graph view can't access your canvases because they're not in Markdown.
Gotcha.
Another point against it. So
yeah. So thanks, Pilot, and we'll see you another time. And I'll wrap things up here with everybody who's watching. So
bye.
So this is the graph view. A couple of my tags that I use a lot, the CLI tag and the cheat sheet tag, are also very closely related. So you can see them linked to the same networks of notes here. So it's cool, but I don't end up actually using it that much. And I won't actually go into this, but the final thing I wanted to mention is I've been working on a workflow that lets me publish a single folder of my vault publicly. And this is kind of cool because these are all plain text files, is I just have them synced with a GitHub repository. So basically that's kind of my next project with Obsidian, is fleshing out this ecosystem. So right now, if I go here, I have just a single repository, and it has a couple notes in it and a few images in this public files folder. So these are my stream notes for today. And I think this is kind of cool because it shows the value of this all being plain text. Is I didn't have to like reformat this. I just literally made this one folder a GitHub repository. And the other kind of neat thing with that is you can even use some of the open publishing ecosystem stuff we talked about. So in our Flex course, so I can use Docsify to view individual notes in there. So I could theoretically get this link to this Markdown file and paste it into Docsify, this Paul Hibbitz's tool, and get this really beautiful preview of a single note that I could then send to someone. And of course, I can use GitHub to sync changes. So when I make changes to the note, it'll show up. And I'm even going further. What I have right now is I'm playing with is a redirect. So basically I can go right now and I set a redirect up on my shared hosting from notes.jaden.me to go to Docsify this. So basically I can go in here and grab the title of a note that is in my public folder and just paste that on the end. So I'll go to notes.jaden.me/note name. And there we go. And it'll redirect to a nice little preview. So I will update my Obsidian note with a list of my plugins, because we mentioned talking about themes and plugins. And people can find that later. And I thank everyone for sticking around. And, hopefully I'm kind of excited about this public version of an Obsidian folder. And so if I flesh this out into something more useful, maybe I'll blog about how it's set up and how other people can use it if they want to. But yeah, it's really cool. I thank Pilot and Amanda, who are both gone already, but who were able to join me today. And thanks everyone for watching. See y'all.